Ah! Sometimes I hear voices. Sometimes I hear screaming. Sometimes I scream myself. My name is Harold Cunningham. I've never been to Colorado before. It seems like it might be a field trip or something like that. They said I had to move here. My mind is so messed up there is no reason to object. Rocky Mountains, here I come. My new home is some isolated concrete bunker, the Alcatraz of the Rockies, the U.S.'s highest security supermax. My new home for all the bad things I've done, I guess. Had I have known that torture was in store for me, I might have objected. The Federal Bureau of Prisons built this rat hole in 1994 for male prisoners, deemed unusually violent or likely to escape from other facilities. At least that was their excuse for what they had in store for all of us. People like John W. Narducci, myself, Jeremy Pinson, Ernest Norman Schaefer, John J. Powers, Carlton Dunbar, Marcellus Washington. Even some famous criminals will find their way here. People like Ted Kaczynski, El Chapo in the future, Ramzi Youssef, Mark Jordan, the prison killer, big shot mob guys, gang members from Chicago and New York. Off Colorado's Highway 67, we sit in cells to be severely mistreated, abused, mentally destroyed, and all kinds of other things. Some people might think that it's fitting for the crimes that we have committed. But the punishment comes from the court, not from the prison system. At least that's the way it's supposed to be. But this place here is built on punishment. It's built on putting the screws in and turning them as hard as you can. Things go on here that you would think were outrageous. They spit in our food. They chain us up from head to toe. Sometimes we're chained to beds for days at a time. I know. This is the land of the free. They would never do that to someone. Oh, but they do. And now all of you know. It's all been made public now. They got away with it for many, many years. They still treat us like shit. The Alcatraz of the Rockies, they call it. My new home. You see, Alcatraz may have been surrounded on all sides by the frigid waters of the San Francisco Bay. But this ADX Florence, it's literally built into the side of a mountain with a robust security infrastructure. Each of us is assigned our own cell. It's a 7 by 12 foot cell where we spend roughly 23 hours alone each day. Sometimes 24 hours a day. The cells and everything in them, including the sink, toilet, shower, desk, and bed, are forged from concrete. A slot in the door allows for meal delivery, with little to no interaction between us and them, the oppressors. That is what they all are, from the guards to the chaplain to the warden. No one gives a shit about us. Psychiatric evaluations, spiritual guidance, and other services are also provided through the door or via telecommunication. We routinely go days with only a few words spoken to us. Sometimes no one says anything. Each cell has a 4-inch wide window. The angled slit cuts through the thick prison walls in such a way that we can't understand our location in the complex. I can't see nothing. Not a highway out in the distance, not a sky, not a star, not a moon. And you know what? You know the minute you get here, you won't see any of that. Not for years and years. Some people will never see it, I guess. Some people seen it when they got here. That was their last day. So many have left their blood on the razor wire here because they couldn't handle it. And sometimes I wonder if I can. If we are lucky, we spend 10 hours outside our cells each week. Even then, I'm kept in isolation. The yard is sectioned off into a series of individual cages. Often when I am outside my cell, I am restrained. These restraints at times are severe. My feet and hands are shackled and tied to a belt around my waist. Sometimes my cuffed hands are further restrained inside a black box. Someone said some dumbass prisoner invented this. I don't know if it's true, but I know that it hurts. It hurts me in more ways than one, not just physically. The black box is just another step in telling me that I am not a human, that I'm an animal. Even animals don't get treated like this. Not this bad. Sometimes my cuffed hands are further restrained inside that black box, and I just feel like I want to scream out and rip away my wrist. But it's physically impossible. The black boxes, I've seen this done to other people too. People like John, the guy with all the crazy tattoos on his face. John Powers. Yeah, that's his name. They think I'm crazy, but this guy cut his balls off. Can you believe it? Lawyers, criminal justice advocates, investigators, former prisoners, and even former employees agree. The ADX is made to detain people who are no longer considered fully human. Like we're something out of a science fiction movie. It's not designed for rehabilitation. At least that's what the old warden told the New York Times magazine. Period. End of story. No rehabilitation here in the mountains. But you want to know the truth? There is none. Rehabilitation is all the way gone. They're here to destroy us mentally. And if no one intervenes, it continues. Like I said, they don't care about me, John, none of us. Most of us have no one. Some might think all we have is each other. But 70% of the people around here are crazy as hell. Without our medication, we can't talk to each other. Without our medication, we can't communicate, we can't talk. Hell, we can't even think straight. All of our stories are similar. Our country, the land of the free, has thrown us into a concrete bunker of torture. I'm telling you, it's torture. Mentally and emotionally, much worse than physical. I've been incarcerated on and off since I was 11 years old. Yeah, I know. Since 11 sounds crazy, right? Life was never easy for me. And boy, has it gotten so much worse. At age 16, I found myself in a juvenile facility in Washington, D.C. for assault with a dangerous weapon. Within 5 months, I attempted to leave my blood on the razor wire. Just like that book by Chad Marks. I didn't succeed, but thereafter I was transferred to St. Elizabeth Hospital in Washington, D.C. A public psychiatric hospital for residents of D.C. That's where they sent me. At that time, there was a doctor there. I'll never forget his name. His name was James Smith. He had diagnosed me with conduct disorder, under-socialized aggressive needs, and major depression. I guess the depression had a lot to do with the way I grew up. Perhaps it had to do with my parents. The disappointments in life. Like so many other people. But there's no excuses. In 1988, at the age of 17 years old, I was arrested for cocaine possession. And I was sentenced to 5 years in the Maryland's high security prison in Baltimore. Yeah, I'm from D.C. But I was out in Baltimore trying to get money, like a lot of other 17-year-olds. And all I got was some years in prison. At the time, I refused all psychological and psychiatric treatment because the other prisoners told me that if I received any mental health treatment or accepted any psychotropic medication, the Department of Corrections would keep me past my release date. Hell no. I just wanted to go home. Whether it was true or not, I do not know. What I knew at the time, I just wanted to get the hell out of this prison. Now look at me. Can you see me? Perhaps I would have been better off if I had stayed. Perhaps I would have been better off had I gotten mental health treatment. This isn't an excuse. I have problems. Like I said, most of us here do. Or else we wouldn't be here. This is a maximum security mental health institution. Can you envision me locked in a cage for the rest of my life? All the things that the world has going on, they're forever gone. Forever lost. I'll never see him again. I'll never drive a car. I may never kiss another woman. I'll never order a pizza, not a real one. Eventually, I was released in 1993 from Baltimore, Maryland. Within months, and this is why I'll never kiss another woman or drive a car, I went with 2 other men. One of those cats is here with me. He's here at the ADX with a severe mental illness. We committed a series of crimes in Washington, D.C. and Maryland. At my trial, I chose to represent myself. Some people said I did a good job. I don't know how they gauged that. I ended up with life plus 380 months. Or life plus 380 years. Sometimes I don't even know how much time I have. I know this might sound crazy, but during that trial on July 15th, 1996, the government says I attacked and stabbed a witness with a homemade knife as she was leaving the witness stand and while in full view of the judge and jury. That should have got me a mistrial, don't you think? Not with this judge. He denied it. I was convicted and sentenced to that term of life in prison, plus 380 years. I guess once I die, they wake me up to do the 380 years. It's all a joke. I laugh sometimes. Sometimes I don't even know why. As if that was not enough, that life plus the 380 years, I was indicted for attempted murder based on the courtroom stabbing. I, of course, asserted an insanity defense and was examined by another doctor. Oh, Carol Kleinman, the switch-up artist. She was board certified in psychiatry and a member of the American Board of Psychiatry and Neurology. She had to interview me. It was part of my defense, right? Dr. Kleinman diagnosed me with psychiatric disorders. She said I was a paranoid schizophrenic. She said I had antisocial personality disorder, borderline intellectual functioning, a history of attention deficit disorder with hyperactivity, along with various forms of drug and alcohol abuse. She opinioned that I was not competent to stand trial and recommended that I be placed on appropriate psychotropic medications. In early 1999, they had another hearing about me to determine whether or not I was competent to stand trial. Dr. Kleinman, however, revised her diagnosis at the hearing, and all of a sudden, the court found I was competent to stand trial. A few months later, the government dismissed all the charges against me without an explanation. Later on, I figured it out myself. When I was sent to USP Marion, Illinois, and placed in long-term isolation. Things only got worse for me sitting in that cell all alone, with no one to talk to or no one to interact with. They dismissed the charges because they wanted to just throw me away. Hell, I already had life plus 380 years. What would another conviction do? Absolutely nothing. At USP Marion, there's another doctor, and I remember him. Oh, Dr. Anderson, Ray Anderson. He conducted a mental status examination of me and concluded that I suffered from psychotic disorder, NOS, and the effects of hallucinogen abuse. They gave me antidepressants and antipsychotic drug therapy. I know I heard voices. Sometimes I saw things that were not there. But shit, you try sitting in a cell all alone for so long and tell me what you see and hear. In May 1999, Dr. James E. Adams conducted a mental status examination on me. Dr. Adams diagnosed me with suffering from psychotic disorder, NOS, in full remission, and personality disorder, NOS. He prescribed the antipsychotic medication, Risperdal, and antidepressant Prozac for me. I know some people out in the street take that Prozac stuff nowadays. I had to take it in prison. In December 2001, they sent me here. Sent me here to the ADX. They kind of tricked me, but oh well, I'm here now. My initial psychological assessment at ADX stated that I was a very antisocial individual who was probably prone to misinterpret the actions and motivations of staff members. The staff psychologists, Dr. Watterson and Dr. Morrison, concluded that mental illness can certainly not be conclusively ruled out at this point. That makes me laugh. Not ruled out? I already have lost it. Can't you tell? I lost it a long time ago. Maybe when I was 11 or 16 or 17. Nevertheless, Dr. Morrison suggested that I try to go without my medication. She wanted me to get rid of the Risperdal and the Prozac and promised that if I did so and experienced any problems, they would put me back on better psychotropic medication. And then I was left to wonder, why would a mental health expert do this to me when they knew I had a serious issue? Dr. Morrison, she had to be crazier than me. Or perhaps it was all designed. It was all designed because they had a different plan. Dr. Morrison initially tricked me into giving up my medication so that I could be placed in the ADX control unit, where such medication cannot be administered. See, when I first came here, if I was on that medication, I couldn't go to the ADX. And they wanted me out of Marion. They wanted me in this Supermax. That's where I belonged. They didn't care about my mental health deteriorating further. They didn't care about the mental torture that I would go through without my medication. This is the land of the free and the home of the brave. After accomplishing that goal, Dr. Morrison did exactly what Dr. Morrison wanted to do. Abandoned me. Without my medication, my behavior predictably worsened over the next several years. The federal prison system did this to many of us because they wanted us to fill up the beds at the ADX. Without my medicine, I started to lose it more and more. The cops kept writing me up for refusing to leave my cell, refusing to submit to restraints. I told you I had enough of that black box. Possession of weapons and assault on correctional officers. Who the hell wants to go into restraints, right? They destroyed me each day more and more. I was held in an isolation cell in the control unit from 2002 to 2007. 5 long years in a place that no man should be left. During this time, I was beat by prison guards and frequently shackled to my bed, sometimes for days or weeks at a time. This hurt me more than I can tell you in words. It broke me. It destroyed me. And if you think it didn't happen, you can always watch that old video of Chad's, where they took that prisoner to that bed. That's what they do to us. That bed. That's how I refer to it. The bed where they 4-point us and leave us to scream. I received no mental health treatment at ADX, even though I repeatedly requested it. Instead, I would get kicks and punches. Sometimes they kept my food from me. I don't know if you know what it's like to go hungry, but I do. Several days with drinking water and wishing I had something to eat. In fact, during my time at the ADX, according to the BOP records, I had formally requested mental health treatment no less than 8 times. I sought help, and they denied it every time. On March 23rd, 2004, I even asked Central Office for psychiatric treatment. Central Office, the people in D.C., my hometown. I asked them for help, because that's where all the bigwigs were at, all the people that were supposed to care. On April 30th, 2004, the Central Office responded that an examination via telepsychiatric help would be done on a video. There would be a video conference between me in one location and a remote psychiatrist. And that psychiatrist said there was no mental illness. This is what the powers to be did to us at the ADX. No accountability. Hell, we all did bad things in here. So why not torture us? No one cares about us or what happens to us. Like I said, some of us have no family to write or to object. And the FBOP thought they were bigger than our families or bigger than our complaints. Congressmen and senators, they all denied our plea for help. For this putative psychiatric evaluation, the FBOP placed me in a room. I remember it like it was yesterday. They handcuffed me from behind with shackles on my legs. Cops surrounded me. A psychiatrist from MCFP Springfield viewed me through a makeshift video screen, asked me questions about my mental health issues, as if the answers received in such an environment were open and adequate to gauge a psychological or psychiatric problem. On June 15, 2004, I filed a Central Office Administrative Remedy Appeal for, among other things, denial of psychiatric treatment. It was denied. There was no help for me. What little I had left in my mind and in my brain, I sought help with. But they did nothing. I was left to suffer when I knew I needed help. On August 10, 2004, I filed another Central Office Administrative Remedy Appeal for being denied mental health medication. I specifically requested an investigation into why I was taken off Risperdal and Prozac. In my appeal, I wrote, I am in pain every day that makes me act out in uncontrollable ways. Records show that when I am taking my medication, I can function without pain or suffering or incident. The BOP simply laughed at me. But I'm not the only one. I see Mike Baycoat. Like me, he grew up in D.C. I see him once in a while. He's only 37 years old. He told me they sentenced him to 28 years in federal prison. With good time, he will get out in 2037. But I doubt by the time he is done with ADX, he will get any good time. This is all part of our lives. Some of us will never get out of here. Mike said when he was 12 years old, he was still in 4th grade. Damn, he's crazier than I am. Or the doctors here actually diagnosed Mike with being mildly retarded. Like so many other guys here, he tested at a second grade level in reading and a third grade level in math. Being locked away in here, I wonder if he could ever read a book. I think the only thing he can read is Clifford the Big Red Dog. Books sometimes takes us away from prison, away from being locked in a cell 23 to 24 hours a day. For people like Mike, all he can do is sit in his cell and dwell on all of this shit we have to endure each day. Mike always yells and beats on the cell. He thinks that the staff are conspiring to take him out. I don't know if it is true, but shit, it might be. He thinks if he goes into recreation cell 6 that staff are going to take him out. Old school, with a rope. At USP Beaumont, Mike repeatedly alleged that the staff was planning to hang him in recreation cell number 6, claiming that he had already informed his family and attorney of his impending murder and advising his BOP psychiatrist to skip their next scheduled session so that the psychiatrist would not get caught up in the legal troubles surrounding Mike's murder. See, Mike believed they were going to kill him, and he didn't want the psychiatrist to get in trouble. Was it all part of his mind? Or did the cops make him feel that way? At various times, Mr. Backcoat, yeah, it's Mike, has alleged that he has a list of the addresses of BOP staff members who seek to kill him, and that staff members have passed him street knives hidden in his food. One of Mike's most persistent delusions is that the BOP is trying to kill him by tampering with his food or with his medication. As a result, he eats very little food, and the food he eats consists mostly of items purchased from the prison commissary. There's no vegetables, very little nutrients, and Mike is slowly dwindling away. Yeah, you see Mike. He's over there in that cell over there. Can you see him? He's in one of those cells, I'll tell you now. I've talked to him before. Although it's not easy, sometimes we talk through the toilets. We take all the water out and we can yell to each other. It's not the best way of communication. It's our prison cell phone. Go ahead and smile, it's okay. Mike's paranoia also strongly affects his willingness to take his medication. I think if Mike took his medication, because sometimes they give it to him, I think he'd be doing much better. In the past, Mike has alleged that the pills he has prescribed change in shape and color every day. He sees this as evidence that the medication is being tampered with in an attempt to kill him. He has claimed that certain pills he has received make him feel intoxicated. I feel him. There were times when I felt that way. Like maybe I had a good night out at the club. Women shaking their ass and me drinking Patron. It's my only escape from this place. I heard the psychiatrist say one day that Mike has major depressive disorder and paranoid ideation. Mike received these diagnoses from the BOP psychiatrist, the same group of motherfuckers that don't care about me or give a shit what is going on with me. In August 2009, Mike finally requested treatment for his mental illness and mental retardation and is being transferred from ADX. That request was denied. The FBOP stated that a review of his file does not indicate you are mentally ill or mentally retarded. This is what they are doing to us in here. Sometimes I am crazy. There have been times when I did take medication, if I could ever get it. But you know what? When I took the medication, I was able to understand what was going on. At least way back then in Marion, they gave me some. But here, they simply want to torture me. Here, they simply want to hurt me. I can't explain to you in words what they do to us. How can I? If you never wore the shoes that I wear, how could you ever dance the dance that I dance? How could you ever feel it? It's an experiment that has gone terribly wrong. You think this place drives us crazy? You ought to see John. Yeah, the infamous John J. Powers. Heard he's free now. I'm happy for him. I'm happy that he no longer has to live like this. I can't believe he made it. Something in his head, although he was lost, something pushed him forward. Some of us have it. Some of us have the will to live, although we lose it at times. On July 6, 2009, I remember old Mr. Powers. He cut his wrist, bled all over his cell. When the cops came, he was unconscious, unresponsive. Several weeks after that suicide attempt in July 2009, the BOP decided that they were going to transfer old Powers to MCFP in Springfield. Yeah, that's another crazy place, but they treat you better, they say. I don't know, perhaps I'll make it there. This time, however, John was not medicated. Rather, despite the BOP's own multiple prior diagnosis of serious mental illness and the manifest physical evidence of profound mental illness reflected in Mr. Powers' disfigured body, a BOP psychologist wrote, quote unquote, and I got this from our lawsuit that we filed, inmate is not in need of custody for care of treatment. He does not have an active mental disorder. He does not require any further evaluation in an inpatient psychiatric facility. Considerations that he has some form of psychosis, thought disorder, or mental illness are unfounded. This man tried to crucify himself, cut his balls off. But he's okay, they say. Despite all he had done, the BOP said he was okay, that he had no problems. In August 2009, they brought old John back. I seen him. He was cuffed and chained. He looked defeated, like he had lost a championship bout. They took him to the torture chamber. Yeah, the fucking control unit with no mental health treatment. The place where they took us and just smashed us and beat us down. Not always physically, but they beat us down mentally. And when they beat us up physically, they had an excuse. That we tried to assault them. Or that we refused a direct order. Or that we were trying to hurt ourselves, so they had to 4-point us. You know the 4-point. They get us out of the way of a camera. Yeah, they got blind spots here. They beat the shit out of us. Handcuffed, of course. Unable to fight back. All we could do was scream. It's the same shit they do to all of us. It only took 4 months when on December 3rd, 2009, Mr. Powers bit off his pinky. I don't know if he was hungry, pissed, or lashing out. But that joker bit his finger off that day. This ADX has fucked us all up. In 2009 and 2010, Mr. Powers covered most of his body with tattoos that he called avatar stripes. I never seen that movie, but I read about it. I found an old magazine. They shouldn't have let me have it, but I got it. And when I looked at John, I knew exactly what an avatar was. He created his tattoos by slicing thousands of tiny slits into his skin with a razor blade and rubbing carbon paper dust into the slits. On December 20th, 2010, Mr. Powers amputated his scrotum and attempted to suture the wound himself, as if he was a doctor. He believed it in his mind. He believed he was a doctor at times. In March 2011, Mr. Powers completed his term in the control unit. He finally made it out of the control unit. Although his original 60-month control unit term would have expired in 2006, had he earned credit for each month he served there, because of his serious mental illness, he was unable to comply with the strict requirements governing earned credit for time served in the control unit. Yeah, they give out good time here. But how many of us will get that when the cops constantly harass us? When they constantly agitate us? Or they create their own problems with us? In many instances, John was denied credit for time served because he had mutilated himself. Because he hurt himself, he got his good time taken away. Thus, the ravages of his untreated serious mental illness both caused his permanent disfigurement and extended his term in the control unit, where he was housed among and tormented by members of the gang he testified against. Yeah, I know all about that too. I heard him talking about it. Oh, John. Pursuant to the directive of the same Department of Justice for which he provided that testimony. On January 12, 2012, Mr. Powers sliced off his earlobes using pencils as tourniquets. On March 21st, 2012, old John sawed through his Achilles tendon with a sharp piece of metal, nearly severing it. I always wondered where he got that piece of metal here at the ADX that's super secure. And everything in here is concrete. But boy, did he have a mind. He could figure out some shit, although he was crazy. The injury was surgically repaired and covered with a hard cast. I seen John had removed the cast one day, and he supported his injured ankle with a splint that he made from a sock. Sometimes I'd see him and I'd laugh. Those were the times when I wasn't completely crazy. In May 2012, after Mr. Powers had again mutilated his genitals, and only a few weeks after the BOP became aware that he was being evaluated by a psychiatrist retained by his counsel, yeah, old John got us all a lawyer. The BOP began treating him with the powerful antipsychotic medication Halidol. Now ain't that something? When someone finally got involved to help us, they wanted to get John some medication. All of a sudden, biting his pinky off and cutting his balls out and avataring his body. Now all of a sudden, he needed help. You don't know what torture is until you've been here. Mental torture breaks the strongest of men. Years upon years of being alone does this to us. Jack has got to be the craziest son of a bitch I ever seen. And there are some people crazy as hell in here, including myself. Seriously mentally ill prisoners are also housed throughout ADX's general population units and inhabit most of the 12 housing ranges that comprise those units. Such prisoners range from recluses who literally have not left their cells in months or years, to more boisterous prisoners who bang on their cell bars or their showers day and night. They talk to themselves, wail and scream, and otherwise express their indeterminate suffering to the great disruption and discomfort of other nearby prisoners, including me. When they finally feel like they want to phase us out and send us to a real prison, shit gets even more realer when they send us to Joker Unit. ADX, they call it the Joker Unit. Don't you think they could have found a better name? Maybe the Jesus Unit. I guess it is like a place where we learn to be free from the 23 hours a day in a cell. For most of us ADX prisoners, being transferred into Joker Unit is a disorienting and dangerous experience. You never know who's here. You never know who's out to get you. After years of isolation with no direct, unrestrained contact with other human beings, many of us experience a fundamental loss of even basic social skills and adaptive behaviors, and predictably find ourselves paranoid about the motives and intentions of others. Once placed into unrestrained contact with other, similarly impaired and paranoid men, the stress on us intensifies. Of course, you could probably only imagine. Even those with no mental illness can be extreme. They say some people here don't have mental illness. I guess we all develop mental illness here, even if we don't want to admit it. Assault and stabbings are common in the ADX. Are you surprised in a place that is made of concrete, supposedly has no steel? In 2005, 2 of these Mexican cats in Kilo units slowly beat and stomped another dude to death over a period of many minutes in full view of the cops, who made no effort to intervene until the victim was lying still, either dead or near death in a pool of blood. That is how they feel about us. We are no longer humans to them. Maybe we are just a job. Maybe we are the scumbags that they sometimes call us to our face. At least to them, we are less than human. I think they are the scumbags for real. They do some cruel shit in here. I witnessed this. I experienced it. Certain cops use the most fucked up of us mentally ill prisoners as weapons against each other. It's kind of like a joke. It's how they pass their day. Especially the particularly disfavored prisoners. They periodically make us rotate cells. We got to change cells sometimes. They say it's for security reasons. For most of us, a cell rotation means moving into the next cell on the same range. When a prisoner is behind a mentally ill prisoner in the cell rotation pattern, at each cell rotation he may find himself forced to move into a cell that is coated with dried human waste, semen, urine, and sometimes blood. They've done this shit to me on numerous occasions, whenever they get pissed off at me. Many of us here at the ADX suffer from contagious blood-borne diseases, such as hepatitis C. Exposure in this manner to another prisoner's waste carries with it an immediate and dire risk of infection with a serious and sometimes fatal illness. No accountability, so they punish us this way. No one cares about us, like that old Michael Jackson song. I'd start singing for you, if I really thought I was him. Sometimes I am Michael Jackson. Sometimes I find myself moonwalking in my cell. We are routinely forced into a waste-cake cell left behind by an obviously mental ill fellow prisoner. We must then clean the cell ourselves, often with few, if any, cleaning supplies, and then await the next rotation, when the process will be repeated. Certain ADX staff members deliberately place disfavored prisoners behind unsanitary mentally ill prisoners in the cell rotation pattern for the intended purpose of exposing the unfortunates to the constant noise and harassment supplied by a mentally ill neighbor, and to ensure that every cell rotation, the disfavored prisoner will have to clean another filthy cell. Can you imagine waking up to someone screaming at the top of their lungs at 2 o'clock a.m.? It happens all the time here. Sometimes I sit alone and cry. Hell, I sit all alone all the time, and I find myself crying more and more each day. Some guys were just tired of crying and left their own blood on the razor wire. On June 17, 1999, Kevin Wilson used a rope to leave this earth that he made out of a bedsheet. On December 9, 1999, Gregory Britt did the same in a recreation cage. On November 18, 2002, it was Lawrence Claker who used his shoelaces. On April 17, 2006, Lance Vander Stappen, he too used his bedsheet. On May 27, 2008, John Fearson braided up his bedsheet and said goodbye to all of us. On May 1st, 2010, Jose Martin Vago went out with a bedsheet too. Everybody usually uses the old bedsheet around here. I wonder what the cops think when they have to roll someone out of here on that bed with that squeaky wheel. I too wonder if this will be my destiny. When we finally got some lawyers in here to help us, the cops started threatening us. They said that the lawsuit ain't going to change shit. They said if we keep crying like bitches, this shit is going to get harder on us. At this point, what more can they do? One cop said, and I heard him, if you don't drop this lawsuit, they will fuck you over. Trust me on this. You think they don't take this shit personal? Or at least when they are professionals, they should never do this type of little kid shit. But they do it. They've been doing it. We're their toys. We have become their toys. Make no mistake about it. ADX staff members have threatened me and other prisoners in communication with the attorneys with a suspension of our little bullshit privileges or write-ups for minor and non-existent violation of rules. Sometimes we're like scared kids that don't want to be punished. Oh, no, please don't write me up. I just want to get out of the ADX as soon as possible. If you write me up, they'll take away my good time. And I'll be stuck in this control unit. Please don't do it. ADX staff has threatened and followed up on their threats to send prisoners like me to the SHU in such instances. Prisoners who have been moved to the SHU under these circumstances have returned to the regular cell to find that their legal mail and personal property has been confiscated. Cops have told us that if we continued to be involved with this investigation, we would be sent to SHU again and our property would again be lost. I don't have much, but what little I do, I hope they don't take it. But they have. 2 or 3 times they sent me there, and they've taken everything that I've owned. And sometimes it gets lost in the property room. Old pictures, old letters from family and friends that are long gone. Their pictures are gone. I'll never see them again. This is the type of shit they do. And this is the type of shit that they did to that old Aryan Brotherhood guy, Tommy Silverstein. And then everyone was mad when he lashed out on those cops. Where were all the mad motherfuckers when they were mistreating him and others? Where were all the mad motherfuckers about his people treating us like shit? About these people treating us like shit. How much can we take? Staff purposely antagonizes us by calling prisoners by abusive and insulting names. Yeah, it includes racial slurs and vulgar terms. They antagonize us. ADX staff members induce prisoners into behavior that then nominally provides a basis for punishing us by placement in the SHU or by suspending them stupid-ass privileges. They did some real bullshit to one dude, got him jammed up in a position to get killed in here. I've seen it. When he complained to the administrative staff that the staff was taking actions that would get him killed, the staff member replied, he should have considered that before inviting all of those lawyers up here. They say because we are seeking help and forcing the prison to treat us like humans, we ain't shit and that we are instigators. They say we're rocking the boat. These motherfuckers been rocking the boat since I got here. For a long, long time. We rocked back after years and years of mistreatment, and now we are the motherfuckers in the land of the free, home of the brave. Man, fuck you. You want to know what my life is like? You want to come inside the most secure federal prison in the United States? Do you know that this is not simply about the ADX being the most secure prison? This is about the place where you are no longer a human. This is all about what being alone is really like. Come into my world where federal employees from the warden down have beat us mentally and emotionally to a point where I can no longer take the abuse. I am no longer okay. They seem to all forget that the punishment comes from the court, not from them. But yet I am tortured in the land of the free. A different kind of torture. Citizens who committed crimes that were sentenced to punishment, but not torture. This is our life. Will the screaming ever stop? Ah! I don't know. Welcome to my life.